The war in Europe is out of control. Technology, energy, and politics are now mixed in a chaotic scenario. From Zaporizhia to nuclear threats, everything seems to be heading toward a point of no return. Refineries exploding in Russia, attacks in Kyiv, and NATO's responses show a conflict with no limits. Energy and war have become one, and the whole continent is trapped in an endless struggle. Zelensky went to Washington to secure more military support and met directly with Trump and top commanders. He seeks long-range missiles and air defenses to counter Russia's non-stop attacks. Each event triggers the next. Power plants under attack, damaged submarines, threatening speeches, and collapsing markets. It's no longer just Ukraine versus Russia, it's global blocs fighting for power and survival. Do you think Europe's economy collapses before a world war starts? And does Europe even dare to challenge Putin now, especially in winter? Just a reminder, this report is based on news from Sky News, The New York Times, BBC, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, Sputnik, RT News, and Telegram. But before we get into the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription means a lot and helps you stay updated on every story about the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more. Ukraine accused Russia of disconnecting Zaporizhia from the Ukrainian power grid to link it to the Russian system. It raised the risk of reactor cooling failure and revived the fear of a nuclear disaster in the war zone. Analysts say Moscow wants to dominate all the region's energy. Kyiv reacts by attacking refineries and depots, trying to cut off the fuel that powers Russia's war machine. The fight now is also for who controls the power switch. Ukrainian drones hit the Ufa refinery inside Russia, and the fire spread for hours. The message was clear: Moscow no longer has a safe rear, and Ukrainians can now strike deep into Russian infrastructure with precision. In response, Russia launched nearly 500 drones and missiles over Ukrainian cities, cutting power in Kyiv and destroying substations. Moscow's message is clear: if it loses on the battlefield, it'll break the people with cold and fear. The attack on Naftogaz was the worst so far in the energy sector. Ukraine is trying to repair what's left, but a total blackout this winter is possible. If it happens, no one knows what comes next. The country could be left in the dark. In retaliation, Ukraine used drones to hit new Russian facilities, showing growing boldness. Moscow confirmed serious damage but promised heavier air and cyber strikes. The game of provocations has turned deadly. The Bashneft refinery was attacked again, the third time in a month. Kyiv admitted the strike, saying the target was Russian military fuel. The explosions lasted over an hour, proving the offensive isn't slowing down. The war has also become a battle for energy. Ukraine strikes Russia's logistics with refinery and pipeline attacks, while Moscow retaliates with hypersonic missiles and kamikaze drones aiming for maximum destruction. Control of the Zaporizhia plant became a symbol of power. For Russia, it's proof of control over occupied land. For Ukraine, it's a nuclear nightmare ready to explode. The longer it lasts, the greater the danger. What comes next could change everything. Attacks on plants and refineries raise the risk of energy collapse and revive nuclear fears. Is Moscow really willing to go all the way before its system collapses? A damaged Russian submarine appeared in the English Channel and became an international joke. NATO mocked it as a useless sub, but behind the humor lies the fleet's serious failures and fear of new incidents. The incident reignited debate about Russia's navy. Experts say the equipment is aging, and Moscow can barely maintain long missions without risking disaster. Its image of strength is crumbling. After that, NATO began discussing stronger responses to airspace violations. Mysterious drones appeared near bases in Poland and Norway, making allies go on red alert. One mistake could ignite a war. The drone dilemma became central. Moscow sends aircraft to test NATO's limits. One wrong move could turn a provocation into full-blown war, endangering the entire continent. To show strength, NATO began the nuclear drill Steadfast Noon, simulating total war. Bombers and fighters trained to defend nuclear arsenals, sending a clear message to Moscow: the West is ready. The ghost of the past returned when they recalled the Russian jet shot down by Turkey. Inside NATO, patience is running out. Many believe Moscow is testing limits on purpose, and ignoring it could end badly. France intercepted a Russian oil tanker suspected of smuggling disassembled drones. The operation showed how Moscow uses trade routes to move military tech, blurring the line between civil and military fronts. In Norway, chaos erupted. Airports closed and bases went on alert due to drone swarms. The government called it coordinated espionage, believing the Kremlin is mapping military positions without official engagement. Russia responded with threats, promising a decisive response to any NATO move. Tensions in Brussels are soaring, and diplomats warn that one mistake could trigger a direct clash over the Baltic or Arctic. Europe is walking a tightrope. Between provocations and military moves, any mistake could turn surveillance into open war, reviving Cold War fears buried for decades. Zelensky went to Washington to secure more military support and met directly with Trump and top commanders. He seeks long-range missiles and air defenses to counter Russia's non-stop attacks. Zelensky went to Washington to secure more military support and met directly with Trump and top commanders. He seeks long-range missiles and air defenses to counter Russia's non-stop attacks. Trump stirred up diplomacy, saying he'd send Tomahawk missiles if Putin refused talks. Moscow called it a direct provocation, warning that any missile crossing the border would count as a US attack. As tensions rise, the Pentagon and NATO engineers are helping Ukraine develop electronic warfare systems to jam communications and bring down Russian drones before winter hits. What stood out most was Trump saying, "We need to finish Russia." The comment went global, prompting the Kremlin to vow brutal retaliation. If those missiles are launched, the conflict could spiral beyond control. After Trump's explosive remarks, US diplomats scrambled to calm things down. Washington still wants peace but won't give in to Putin's nuclear blackmail. Behind the scenes, the Pentagon increased surveillance on Russian bases in Eastern Europe. The US ambassador to NATO said the danger isn't just Russia's weapons, but the recklessness of those controlling them. The Kremlin's risky bluffing, he warned, pushes the world closer to an irreversible escalation. The US ambassador to NATO said the danger isn't just Russia's weapons, but the recklessness of those controlling them. The Kremlin's risky bluffing, he warned, pushes the world closer to an irreversible escalation. Putin isn't standing still. Russia increased military movements and moved nuclear warheads to bases near Belarus, a direct warning to the United States that any Western arms crossing the line will trigger an immediate response. Now, everything could change. If Trump actually sends the Tomahawks, war enters a new era. US missiles crossing borders and NATO face-to-face with Russia. Can anyone still stop what's already begun? In early September, dozens of Russian drones invaded Polish airspace, causing total chaos. Sirens blared, NATO jets scrambled, and the world saw how close a provocation can come to full war. Polish forces shot down some of the drones, but debris fell near civilian areas. Warsaw called it a deliberate attack and demanded an emergency NATO meeting in Brussels for an immediate response. Now everything could change. If Trump actually sends the Tomahawks, war enters a new era. US missiles crossing borders, and NATO face-to-face with Russia. Can anyone still stop what's already begun? Days later, Romania detected another Russian drone in its airspace. Two F-16s were scrambled to intercept it, raising alarms about how the hybrid war is spreading through southeastern Europe. Soon after, 3 Russian MiG-31 fighters violated Estonian airspace for 12 minutes. NATO reinforced defenses on Vaindloo Island and increased patrols. One mistake now could ignite the confrontation everyone fears. Soon after, 3 Russian MiG-31 fighters violated Estonian airspace for 12 minutes. NATO reinforced defenses on Vaindloo Island and increased patrols. One mistake now could ignite the confrontation everyone fears. This Russian strategy became the symbol of hybrid warfare, a mix of espionage, sabotage, and disinformation meant to confuse NATO countries and divide responses. Brussels is already planning joint countermeasures to stop the chaos from spreading. This Russian strategy became the symbol of hybrid warfare, a mix of espionage, sabotage, and disinformation meant to confuse NATO countries and divide responses. Brussels is already planning joint countermeasures to stop the chaos from spreading. Fear pushed Baltic and Scandinavian countries to buy air defense systems. Patriot missiles, radars, and even US Aegis ships are being deployed in the North Sea, forming a military wall against Moscow. Fear pushed Baltic and Scandinavian countries to buy air defense systems. Patriot missiles, radars, and even US Aegis ships are being deployed in the North Sea, forming a military wall against Moscow. NATO sent a direct warning to Putin. Any attack on an ally will face a response he's never seen. The tone has escalated, with the alliance moving troops and heavy weapons to strategic points to show the threat is real. Moscow hit back its own way, launching swarms of drones and missiles at Ukraine. Explosions struck power stations and military depots. The war has turned into a battle of endurance. Whoever breaks first loses control of the story. Kyiv, refusing to back down, began striking deeper inside Russia. Refineries and logistics bases became constant targets. The goal? Choke Putin's war economy and weaken Russian morale before the cold returns. Meanwhile, 7 countries announced new arms deliveries to Ukraine: long-range missiles, air defenses, and armored vehicles. The goal is clear: keep Kyiv standing and prevent Russian bombings from crippling the country. The situation has become unbearable. With drones crossing borders and rhetoric escalating, the risk of a direct war between Russia and NATO has never been higher. One miscalculation could plunge the planet into the worst conflict since 1945. The fear of a third world war returned when Moscow announced its nuclear weapons were on standby. Satellites spotted movements in silos and naval bases, sending a clear message: Russia wants to be taken seriously. Amid the tension, Ukraine's finance minister said 7 more countries would join NATO's Pearl initiative to improve military logistics. The goal? Strengthen ammunition and fuel supply for allies. Europe's economy feels like a ticking bomb. Germany's machinery industry is collapsing, its chemical sector losing billions, and US tariffs plus Chinese competition are pushing everything toward breakdown. The risk of recession is huge. Europe struggles amid sanctions, high energy prices, and divided governments. The next winter could mark the moment it stops being the center of global power. The risk of recession is huge. Europe struggles amid sanctions, high energy prices, and divided governments. The next winter could mark the moment it stops being the center of global power. Drones, nuclear threats, and financial crises mark a turning point in modern history. Nobody wants to step back, and the arms race moves faster than ever. It feels like a new Cold War, but far more dangerous. Drones, nuclear threats, and financial crises mark a turning point in modern history. Nobody wants to step back, and the arms race moves faster than ever. It feels like a new Cold War, but far more dangerous. Trump's return shook the board even more. He mixes threats and negotiations, pressuring both Kyiv and Moscow. Ukraine struggles to survive with US support, while Putin bets on exhaustion and energy control. Europe is stumbling. The economy is weak, governments are divided, and the nuclear threat hangs in the air. The continent seems lost, reacting to chaos instead of shaping the global game. Faced with a war mixing nuclear power, drones, and economic collapse, one question remains. How far will Moscow go before global balance completely collapses? Thanks so much for sticking around until the end of the video. You're awesome, and I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any updates on the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more.